Come on!
What's going on, guys? Coach Joe here at the Lion's Den with another video on bench pressing tips, specifically technique tips in the bench press that have really helped with my bench press, as long with athletes that I see here at the Lion's Den. So I do own a gym. I get to coach hundreds of athletes, and these are just the common technical errors that I see on the daily. A little bit of background on myself. My current bench press PR is 417.5 pounds, and that's 417.5 because it was a misloaded barbell, but my bench press has steadily increased, and these tips have definitely helped with that increase over time. Also, if you do implement these tips, there's a chance that you could possibly PR on your bench press just by these small little adjustments that will carry over to a big difference on the bench press. Tip number one, guys, is gonna be unracking the bar properly. Now, I know it seems super simple, but this can make a huge difference in terms of the success or failure of your bench press. Now, often I'll see this with beginners, is that they take the bar off just completely out of control, a little bit wild, and then go right into the descent without taking enough time and being patient. So when you are unracking the bar, make sure that you are getting into your proper setup. You wanna have your shoulder blades pinched into the bench. You wanna make sure that everything is just nice and tight. You have a nice big breath of air. And what I like to think about in terms of tension for unracking the bar is almost like doing a lat pull down. You're gonna stay just glued into that position, and you are not going to release your shoulder blades. You wanna make sure that you're taking it off with your lats, maintaining position throughout the unracking process. I picked a really bad day to video. We have construction going on next door. Way to go, Coach Joe. If you have a spotter, make sure that you are communicating with your spotter how you want the unracking process to go and what you expect from them. I've also seen people who have not communicated that very well, and they end up with just a really bad unracking procedure, and it could make or break that rep. Number two, something I always see in beginners especially, is the pitter-pattering of the feet while they're bench pressing. Okay, we call this the happy feet or the dancer issue. And really what we're trying to do, and especially in the bench press, is build up as much tension as possible and just be rooted into the ground. So that's my tip right there, is root your feet into the ground. Make sure that whatever shoes you're wearing are pressed into the floor. There's not much movement going on throughout the entire motion of the bench press, okay? The more that you are moving around, more movement that's being caused, it's just gonna cause instability in the bench press, and that can really mess up bar path. And if we have a bad bar path, you know that 300 pounds starts feeling like 400 pounds very quickly. There's no really set rule with how far or how close your feet should be. Everyone's gonna be a little bit different depending on if they arch or not, which we'll talk about a little bit in the future. But just make sure that you're comfortable and that they're nice and secure. So if someone went to go tug on your leg, your foot wouldn't just fly out right away. And throughout that movement, like I said, your feet aren't pitter-pattering around. You're solid like a statue, rooted in like a tree to Mother Nature. Now, number three could be a video in its entirety, and maybe in the future I will make one, and there are some videos that I have made in the past that talk about this, but that's going to be making sure that you have a nice, secure arch in your bench press. And since we're talking about getting strong on this channel, most athletes, when it comes to max performance in the bench press, all use some sort of arch. Well, why do we want an arch when we bench press? Well, it's gonna shorten the range of motion, and I'm a fan of that because the less work we have to do, the better the lift is gonna be. Having an arch in your lower back when doing the bench press also helps for a better bar path, okay? So it's just gonna create a nice angle for where the bar is gonna come down, touch your chest, and then you're gonna be able to press it back up without causing too much stress or impingement on the shoulder. Now, if you're having issue with sliding on the bench when you try to get into your benching arch position, something that I found that helps is putting bands on top of the bench, which is just a really simple and easy way to fix that if you can't afford a really expensive bench pad or competition bench setup. Now, I don't want to get too into the nitty-gritty of how to set up into an arch because that can be a whole other video, but basically you want to make sure that your shoulders are pinned into the bench as deep as possible while having your chest raised up and stretching it up to the ceiling or sky as far as you can while maintaining your tushy on the bench. From there, you want to get your legs back as far as you can. It may be a little bit uncomfortable, that's okay. But as long as you can feel the tension building up throughout there and then your butt is not coming off of the bench, you're good to go. But I will definitely say that having an arch in your bench press, although it seems minor, will have a major carryover into how much weight you will eventually be able to put up in the bench press. Now for number 4, in terms of technical advice I would give to somebody with the bench press, is not to be the air humper. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people get into the method of leg drive in their bench press, and that is totally fine. But what I see often, especially in the gym, is when they go to use the leg drive, their butt just keeps shooting off into the air, and it looks like they're just humping an imaginary creature or person, a loved one, friend, something. They're humping something. On top of that, when you are actually leaving the bench with your butt, you are then again once losing stability and possibly throwing off your bar path. And when we do that, it's just going to increase the chances of us failing a rep or just making that rep way harder than it needs to be. So to do that, we want to make sure that we keep our butt down on the bench, glued into that bench, and driving our legs, once again reiterating one of the other tips of just pushing our feet and keeping them rooted into the ground. That's going to help from having your butt shoot off into the air. Now, it may happen sometimes, that's okay. Depending on the federation you're in, it will not fly with them. Now, the last tip I'm briefly going to talk about, because I've made an entire video on this tip as its own video, which I'm gonna link right above, so you should go and just watch that video. But it's a bad habit that I picked up from Mark Bell, and that was raising the head when you bench press. Now, for some people, I understand why they do this, and depending on where they're at in their competitive nature, that's different. But for, I would say, the general population and public who are just trying to increase their bench press, you want to get used to keeping your head pinned down on the bench. Now, like I said, there's a whole video on it that I've made, so go over and check that video out. Gives it way more in depth on what I'm talking about by that. But that's what I would say to you guys, is make sure that you keep your head down and don't be raising it every time you descend or throughout the time you're using the bench for bench pressing. So that's pretty much it, guys. Hopefully these tips will help you out with your bench press. I know that they've made a huge difference in mine personally, and as well as a lot of the athletes that I coach here. But those are just some things that I saw from people that train here and just in general that were the big things that stuck out. And we're always learning, we're always trying to get better. So no matter where you're at in your lifting career, you can kind of just reference these tips and this video as something to get better on. So if you like the video, please make sure you give it a like. I really appreciate that. Comment down below with any of your thoughts on maybe some tips that I missed or things that have really made a big difference in your bench press. Share it on social media, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. Really appreciate that, guys. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Lots of good stuff coming out. Until then, guys, stay a lean, mean, strength machine, and I'll catch up with you later. Peace.